Hi again. So last week I described the various theories that we would be studying as lenses, or ways of seeing leadership. This week we're going to be looking at two lenses of leadership, the trait lens and the skills lens. Historically, the trait perspective on leadership has been the easiest way to describe who a leader is, those who shared common traits. As leadership development programs and books began to be written, the focus was on developing those identified traits. That, of course, was difficult because some of those traits, like extroversion and intelligence, are inborn characteristics. It's something you have or you don't have. It's not something that can significantly improve throughout life. The lens of trait leadership is one that very much is ingrained in our cultural understanding of who leaders are. When you think leaders, you think of certain types of people, because that's what our culture has always said, this is who a leader is. The traits first identified in 1948, intelligence, social ability, self-confidence, and others, are still traits that we tend to think about when we think about leaders, at least in American culture. We will look at cultural perspectives on leadership in the final week of this class and see that confidence and dominance are not always the preferred traits of leaders. Eventually, research also began to focus not just on innate or inborn personality characteristics of those who led, but also on their capabilities or their skills. The focus turned towards what leaders were capable of doing. Next week, we're going to look at what leaders actually do, but for now, we'll look at various skill models to help us see what capacities have been connected to leadership. Both of these approaches are descriptive in nature. They don't really help people understand what leaders should do in a given situation. They merely describe leaders or the capabilities that leaders have and how those capabilities have been developed. They don't really help everyday people understand how to become leaders, though the skills theory does open the door for anyone to be a leader, sort of. You see, the skills perspective is actually a little misleading. As the text points out, it ultimately depends on the inborn personality or characteristics of the leader that determines which skills can be developed. It seems we can't get very far from personality when talking about leadership. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Often, when we think about personality and leadership, the concept of extroversion and adaptability come to mind, and that fits with the trait theory of leadership. However, recent research into the power of introversion has begun to paint a different picture of the potential that introverts can offer in leadership positions. Introverts are those people who are not naturally outgoing. They don't get energized by crowds or energized by people. They prefer quietness or solitude or stillness. It's not that they're always shy or antisocial. That's just not what energizes them. Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, Eleanor Roosevelt are offered as recognized leaders who are also introverts. Perhaps there is an element of personality that can be combined with the skills model of leadership. The personality traits you have can be developed fully and then applied to various leadership situations and lead to success. That's not exactly the way the skills theory is described in the text, but it fits with a theory that is probably a reaction to both of these approaches, which is a rather modern theory called strengths-based leadership. The theory with strengths-based leadership is that you take your inborn talents that you have, and then you work to fulfill them and focus on just those, rather than focusing on your weaknesses. There's some interesting biological research behind strengths theory that basically says, from a neurological or brain perspective, you will only get better at the things you're already naturally good at. You will not get significantly better at the things that you're naturally weak at. This theory, popularized by Donald Clifton, Marcus Buckingham, and Laurie Schreiner, encourages people to identify the natural traits that they have and work exclusively on those traits while minimizing the impact of their weaknesses. They've identified 34 possible talents, and the idea is to identify your top 5 talents through an assessment like StrengthsFinder or StrengthsQuest, and turn those natural talents into strengths. It doesn't matter what your top talents are. If you improve your talents, you'll be able to utilize them in a variety of places and circumstances, and it won't really matter if you have some of the traits identified in these studies that we're looking at this week. It's an interesting theory, and I really wish we actually had more time to explore it here. You may be exposed to it in other classes throughout your college career, but I recommend taking the assessment if you ever get a chance. Sadly, there isn't a free version available online. From a brief perusal on Amazon.com, it seems that StrengthsFinder 2.0 by Tom Rath is probably the least expensive option. You need to buy the book new because each book contains a unique code which is used to log in and take the test. But all of that is totally optional and not at all required for this class. So if you don't do it, don't worry about it. It's just another resource for you. All of that to say, we can't separate our personality from the way we lead, but we also can't let our personality define our ability to lead. In the journaling assignment for this week, you'll need to involve some other people that know you well. You're asked to fill out a self-evaluation and to have 5 others fill out the same evaluation. The questionnaire is from the book, but to make it easier to have 5 others fill it out, I've reformatted it and posted it as a separate PDF on the course site. You can print these out and give them to the 5 people, then using the scoring guide, which has also been posted, determine the results. You'll use this information along with the questionnaire at the end of Chapter 3 in your personal reflection this week. Alright, I look forward to discussing these topics with you this week, and I'll see you on the discussion board.